Your ankles are weaker than they were 10 years ago. You feel it stepping off a curb, walking on gravel, getting out of bed on a cold morning when the floor seems less certain than it used to be. Your balance is leaving you a little bit at a time, so slowly you barely notice until you catch yourself on the kitchen counter one morning and realize you needed it. Maybe you have started avoiding certain paths, certain stairs, certain shoes with thin soles because the ground does not feel safe anymore. Maybe you stopped hiking 2 years ago and told yourself it was the knees, but the truth is you did not trust your footing on the trail. The doctor says, wear supportive shoes. The shoe store says you need arch support, cushioned soles, a firmer heel cup. Every answer puts more material between the bottom of your foot and the ground. Every year your feet get a little weaker, your ankles a little less steady, and the fear of falling grows by another inch. And behind every one of those solutions is a price tag, and behind every price tag is a company that profits from the fact that your feet cannot do what they were built to do. On my farm, the children run barefoot from April through October. They run across fields, over the gravel lane, past the barn, through Ruth's garden, down to the creek bank, and back before supper. The old men in my community walk on dirt and barn floors and plowed ground every day of their lives, stepping over roots and ruts and frozen mud without thinking twice about it. Their feet are as sure at 80 as they were at 40, and nobody in this county has ever sold them a pair of arch supports. And later, I will tell you why the people who make your shoes have never once mentioned what happens when you take them off. My name is Noah Yoder, and I am Amish. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the same land my family has worked for generations. The children in my community have run barefoot every summer for as long as anyone can remember, and the foot doctor in town has never seen an Amish child in his office. In the last video, I showed you what happens when the morning light hits your eyes and your skin. Today I want to show you what happens when the ground hits the bottom of your feet. Before I go further, for the folks who want everything I have taught on this channel and the methods I have not gotten to yet, all in one place, I have put it together at my website. I will not push it again. If you want it, it is there. An honest word before we go further. I am not a doctor. I am not pretending to be one. I am a farmer who has watched 3 generations walk this world out that why they would. I am not telling you to stop taking anything your doctor gave you. If you are under a doctor's care, talk to your doctor before you change anything. What I am showing you is what my family does and has done for 200 years on this county, and the plain reason behind it. Nothing I am about to show you costs money, and none of it requires a prescription. Now, a few things specific to today. Watch where you step. Glass, thorns, sharp stones. They are out there, and if you are not paying attention, they will find you before you find them. If you have diabetes or any condition that affects the feeling in your feet, talk to your doctor before you try any of this. A cut you cannot feel can become a problem you wish you had caught sooner, and I will not have you on that list. Start on soft ground, clean grass, garden soil, a sandy path. Do not start on gravel or hot pavement. Give your feet a few weeks of gentle ground before you ask anything harder of them. Build up the way you would build anything worth building. Slowly, with care, and with respect for the material you are working with. The soles of your feet will toughen on their own schedule, and pushing ahead of that schedule is how people get hurt when they should be getting well. And I will be honest with you about why the people who sell you shoes have never once told you any of that part comes later, so stay with me. Walk outside barefoot tomorrow morning and stand on the grass for 20 minutes. That is the first practice, and it is the simplest one you will hear today. Let the bottoms of your feet touch the actual ground, not a patio, not a deck, the living earth, grass, soil, a garden path. Roll your foot from heel to toe the way it wants to move when nothing is in the way. If you live in a place without a yard, a park would do. Any patch of ground where the earth has not been paved over, a community garden, a churchyard, a patch of grass at the edge of a parking lot. The ground does not care where you find it. It works wherever you find it. In cooler weather, the grass has a bite to it in the first few minutes. That is normal, and the foot adjusts faster than you would expect. By the time 5 minutes have passed, the cold has become part of the experience rather than a shock. In summer, go early before the ground heats up because hot pavement and scorched earth will burn a foot that has not built its calluses yet. Morning is best in every season. The ground is cool, the air is still, and the body receives what it needs before the day gets loud. Every morning of their lives, the women in my community have done this without giving it a thought. They walk from the house to the garden barefoot while the dew is still on the grass and their feet hit the soil before most English folks have put their slippers on. Nobody told them it was healthy. The garden needed weeding, and the shoes stayed by the door. That was the whole decision. Here's the plain why of it. The bottom of your foot has over 200,000 nerve endings packed into a patch of skin smaller than a sheet of paper. That is one of the most nerve-rich surfaces on your entire body. Every one of those endings is trying to send a message to your brain about where you are, what you are standing on, how the ground tilts, whether the surface is firm or giving way. When you wear a cushioned shoe, those messages get muffled the way sound gets muffled through a closed door. Think of wearing a thick leather glove and then trying to feel the grain of a walnut shell. You can hold it, but the detail is gone. A cushioned sole does exactly that to the bottom of your foot every hour of every day for decades. The nerve endings are still there. They are still sending. But the shoe is absorbing the message before it arrives. When you take the shoe off and stand on real ground, the brain starts receiving those messages again. Your balance improves because the brain is finally getting the information it was designed to use. The slope, the texture, the small shifts in pressure that tell your body where it stands in the world. That information was always there, under the sole of your shoe, waiting for you to listen. Researchers have also been studying what happens when bare skin touches the earth directly. What they have found so far is that the body responds in ways they are still working to understand. Inflammation markers come down and the stress hormone settles. The blood moves more easily through the smaller vessels. The science on this particular piece is still young, and I will be plain about that. The researchers at the universities are still measuring, still testing, still debating the mechanism. But my grandmother did not need anyone to explain why her feet felt better in the garden than in her shoes. She just knew. She walked barefoot into that garden every morning for 60 years, and her feet were sound and sure the day she died. What this practice will not do is replace a medicine you need or undo a condition you already carry. What it does is give your feet and your brain something they were built to receive and have been missing for as long as you have been wearing shoes. There is a feeling the grass has in early June on the south side of the house when the dew is still heavy and the sun has not yet burned it off, cool and dense and alive under your feet. The barn cats are sitting on the warm stones by the milk house, watching you with that lazy half-interest cats have for anything that does not concern them. You cannot buy that feeling. You can only walk into it. Before we go on to the next practice, let me pause for a moment. For the folks who want help putting these old ways to work in their own daily life, Ruth and I have put together a community where we walk through all of this together. The link is in the description. The old folks did not do this next thing because someone instructed them. They did it because their whole life demanded it. Every uneven surface, every frozen rut, every muddy slope trained their feet in ways that no flat sidewalk and no cushioned sotogol And what they built in those feet without trying is the very thing that keeps a person upright and unbroken into old age. Stand on one foot, barefoot, for 30 seconds, then switch to the other foot. Do this twice a day, morning and evening. If you need to hold the back of a chair at first, hold the chair. There is no shame in the chair. The shame would be in not starting. What is happening inside your foot would you tear the well, this is what happens with the muscles inside your foot. Small muscles that run between the bones, that hold the arch, that grip the ground and make the tiny adjustments that keep you from tipping, have been doing almost nothing for decades. A modern shoe with a built-in arch support handles the stabilization that those muscles were designed to manage on their own. After 20 or 30 years of the shoe doing that work, the muscles lose their conditioning the same way your arm would lose its strength if you carried it in a sling for 30 years. Your arch drops because the muscles underneath it stopped holding it up. Your ankle rolls more easily because the small stabilizers around it forgot how to fire fast enough to catch you. And one day the ground shifts under you, and the foot that should have caught it cannot respond in time. Watch the Belgians in my field plant their hooves on mud and ice and uneven ground 1,000 times, and they never stumble because every muscle in those legs is alive and working. Your feet were built for that kind of sureness. They just forgot how. Falls are the #1 cause of injury, death in adults over 65 in this country. That comes from the CDC. #1, ahead of car accidents, ahead of everything else. And the feet doing the falling have spent their entire adult life inside shoes that did all the stabilization work for them. The muscles never had to fire, so they stopped firing, and one wet bathroom floor or one uneven curb asks them for something they can no longer deliver. The old men in my church district walk on uneven ground every day of their lives. Barn floors with boards that heave and sog with the seasons, plowed fields with furrows and half-buried stones, creek banks where the footing changes with every rain. Their feet are strong because the ground asked them to be strong every single day for 70 or 80 years. Once you can stand on one foot for 30 seconds without grabbing the chair, progress to walking barefoot on uneven ground. A backyard with a few bumps and slopes is enough. A park trail or a dirt path through the neighborhood is enough. Let your feet find their own balance on surfaces that are not perfectly flat, and let the small muscles do the work the shoe has been doing for them. After a few weeks, pick up small objects with your toes, a marble, a pencil, a washcloth on the floor. It sounds like a child's game, and that is exactly what it is. The children in my community pick up sticks and stones with their bare feet all summer long, purely for fun, and their feet grow to scry. Yours can get strong from those movements done with purpose. If you have neuropathy, foot conditions, or diabetes, remember what I said earlier about checking with your doctor. That goes double for this kind of work. The goal here is gradual strengthening over weeks and months, not a test of endurance on the first afternoon. In the first week, you might not last that full half-minute on one foot. That is fine. Start at 10 seconds and add 5 seconds every few days. By the end of the first month, most folks can hold the count comfortably, and the ankle that used to wobble has already started to quiet down. By the second month, the uneven ground that made you nervous starts to feel manageable. By the third, you stop thinking about your feet entirely, because they are doing their job again without being asked. I watched my grandfather cross a frozen field in January, stepping over ruts and ice and hardened mud without so much as a wobble, and he was 81 years old. The Belgians were standing at the fence line watching him come, their breath hanging in the cold air, and he walked across that rough ground like a man walking across his own kitchen floor. His feet knew every inch of that land the way his hands knew a hammer, every ridge, every slope, every frozen patch read and answered before his mind had time to think about it. There is one more piece to this, and it ties the other two together. The morning walk on the grass gives your feet the sensation they have been missing. The balance work gives your feet the strength they have lost. But neither one holds if you spend the rest of the day in a shoe that takes it all back. Go barefoot inside your own house all year round. No slippers on the kitchen floor. No thick socks sliding across the tile. Let your feet feel the surface you walk on 20 times a day without ever noticing what is under them. Most homes have 3 or 4 different floors: hardwood, tile, carpet, maybe concrete in the garage. Each one teaches the foot something different, asks the small muscles to react in a slightly different way, keeps the nerve endings experiment. The hardwood is smooth and cool and lets the foot spread wide. The tile is cold in winter and forces the toes to grip for warmth. Even the carpet matters. The softness asks the foot to work differently than it works on a hard surface, and the variation is part of the training. Going barefoot in your own home is the easiest change you will ever make because it costs nothing, requires no extra time, and you are already there. From April through October, take it outside. Start on the cleanest, softest ground you can find and let the foot adjust to real earth before you ask it to handle anything rougher. The ground changes under you with every passing week. May grass is thin and cool and still finding its strength after winter. July grass is thick and warm by afternoon, and the soil underneath is firm from the dry weeks. October ground is cooler, harder, scattered with leaves and seed pods that crunch and crawl under your lud quartzly. Your feet adapt to every surface the way they would have adapted if they had been doing this your whole life. Calluses form where the foot needs them, in exactly the places where the load presses hardest. Those calluses are the foot's own answer to rough ground. They build themselves without you thinking about it, and they do a better job of protecting the sole than any cushion a factory could design. Your foot today is the foot your shoes for you. The foot you will have after 6 months of barefoot living is the foot your body was trying to build all along, the foot it would have built if it had ever been given the chance. The muscles do not rebuild in a week. Give it a full season, April to October. The change comes slowly enough that you might not notice it happening. But you will notice one October morning when you walk across the yard on cold, uneven ground, and your feet handle it without complaint, and you realize that 6 months ago they could not have done that. Ruth laughs when I describe it this way. She says nobody needs a 6-month plan to walk outside without shoes. Just take them off. She has been taking hers off every morning since she was a girl, and her feet are stronger than mine. She is probably right, the way she usually is. But I know you have been wearing shoes your whole life, and undoing that takes time and gentleness and the patience to let the body rebuild what it lost. Remember what I said at the start about the people who sell you shoes never once mentioning what happens when you take them off. Here is why. A pair of supportive walking shoes costs $80 to $150 and lasts about a year of daily wear. Custom orthotics run $200 to $600, and the specialist who fits them expects to see you again in 12 months. Physical therapy for balance and fall prevention costs $50 to $200 a session, 2 or 3 sessions a week, for months. A reasonable middle estimate over 20 years of aging feet, replacing shoes each year, a round or two of orthotics, a few courses of physical therapy, comes to somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000. That depends on what your insurance covers and what it does not. A patch of grass costs nothing. 20 minutes standing on it costs nothing. The strongest, steadiest feet in this county belong to people who have never spent a dollar on arch support in their lives. The shoe company profits from feet that need more support. The orthotic company profits from arches that collapsed because the muscles under them never had to hold. The physical therapist profits from a body that lost its balance because the feet that were supposed to catch it could not feel the ground fast enough. Nobody in any of those industries profits from telling you that the ground does the work for free, and so nobody does. I am not telling you there was a meeting in a tall building somewhere where these companies decided to keep you in the dark. I do not believe in that kind of thing. It is something worse. It is a quiet agreement among everybody who profits to never mention the alternative that costs nothing. The shoemaker does not need to coordinate with the orthotic company. The orthotic company does not need to call the physical therapist. They just all need to stay quiet about the grass. And they have for decades. Your doctor is a good person trapped inside a system that was never built to talk about the things that cost nothing. There is no billing code for standing the barefoot. There is no referral form for standing on one foot in the kitchen. So it does not come up, and you leave the office with a prescription for shoes or a referral for therapy, and the grass sits there in your yard doing nothing because nobody told you it was doing everything. My grandmother never spent a dollar on her feet in her life, and she walked sure-footed across this farm until the day she could not walk at all. From the first warm day in April until the frost comes, my grandchildren are outside barefoot. They run across the field, down to the creek, through the garden and back, and their feet handle everything the ground puts in front of them. The doctor in town told me once that the Amish children he examines have the strongest, most flexible feet he has ever seen in his practice. He could not explain it. I told him to look at their shoes. He said they were not wearing any. That was the whole answer, but it was the one answer his training never prepared him to give. My grandfather walked barefoot through the barn and the fields whenever the season allowed, and in boots only when the ground froze hard enough to demand them. His feet were wide and thick-soled, his toes spread the way toes spread when nothing has squeezed them together for 60 years. At 81, his balance was better than most people half his age, because his feet had been reading the ground beneath him every single day of his long life, and they never once lost the language. His father walked this ground before him, and his father before that. 3 generations of men on this farm with strong feet and sure footing, and not $1 spent on a shoe designed to do the work the foot already knew how to do. So do I. And so do Kruth. Our children and their children carry the habit forward. Normal living. That is all it ever was. Normal living the way people in this country lived for 200 years. Then someone decided your feet needed help and built a shoe that made sure they always would. So here is what I want you to do tomorrow morning. One thing and nothing else. Walk outside barefoot and stand on the grass. Start with 10 minutes if 20 feels like too much. Even 10 is enough for those nerve endings to wake up. Do not walk, do not stretch, do not do anything unusual. Just stand there with your bare feet on the actual earth and pay attention to what you feel underneath them. The temperature of the grass, the firmness of the soil underneath it, the small unevenness that your shoe has been hiding from you for years. Let those 200,000 nerve endings do the work they have been waiting to do since the last time your bare foot touched the ground, whenever that was. It costs nothing and it requires nothing. You already have everything you need, a door and a patch of ground. You will feel something within the first few days, and it is difficult to put a name on, a kind of waking up in the feet, as if they have been numb and are finally stretching back to life. The old folks in my community call it getting your ground legs. The researchers would call it proprioceptive recalibration, which is a longer way of describing what I just described. But whatever the name, you will feel it. And once you have felt it, stepping back into your shoes will feel different, like putting on gloves before making dinner. You will notice what you were missing, and if you keep at it for a week, then 2, then a month, The feet you have at the end of that month will be steadier and stronger than the feet you started with. Once you have felt the ground do its quiet work on the bottoms of your feet, the rest of what I have to show you on this channel will feel like common sense. Tell me in the comments if your grandparents went barefoot, and if they did, tell me what you remember about how they looked doing it, whether they were in the garden, on the porch after supper, walking through the barn in the early morning. Those memories are the very knowledge I am trying to keep alive on this channel. I read every single one. Next time I am going to show you what happens to your sleep when you let the dark come the way it was meant to come. Ruth and I do not own an alarm clock and have not needed one. The reason has nothing to do with going to bed early. You do not need a product to do what living was supposed to do all along.